Greetings to all, and thank you for joining us for the first episode of the Lionheart Podcast. I am your host, Luigi Veleno, and today we are going to discuss the difficulties of being an independent artist and the challenges that young musicians face in the musical climate today. We will also be featuring an interview with local rapper Trip Face and examining some of his experiences. Young musicians say that today they have it harder than ever before. How will they make it? How can we transform the music industry in ways that enable the success of young creators? I think that truly it is up to us, the consumers, the audience. We have to make changes in the modern media scape if we want to have great music for future generations. In this episode, I will inform you of some of the ways listeners and creators alike have sculpted a system in which it is increasingly challenging to succeed. And I hope that through this information you will leave with a better understanding of how you affect the music industry both as a listener and a creator. And perhaps that you will learn the ways we can all be more mindful in our consumption in efforts to change the future for young musicians along the way. Again, this is Luigi Veleno of the Lionheart Podcast. Please stay tuned. Alrighty, so thanks to the growing technical and commercial nature of the music industry, young musicians now must be increasingly creative in their networking, business, and management techniques. Upon my initial dive into researching the musical climate, I was most amazed and perhaps most frustrated by the recent evolution of copyrights. In an article I read in the Rolling Stone magazine, I found out in more detail what copyright looks like in music today and about the dozens of different forms of copyrights for musicians. For any given song, the copyrights are separated into different licensing for different contributors. For one single hit, there could be 3, 4, 5, or even more different copyrights allocated to different partners such as the writer, the performer, the recording engineer, and the distributor. That's a lot of fingers in the honeypot. For a young artist, the intricacies of these legal processes and the wealth of not only knowledge and capital, but the support necessary to navigate them are cost prohibitive, both monetarily and more abstractly. I personally am more than capable of recording a song and distributing it via online platforms to collect royalties. But if I wanted to join a record label with my band, or even just walk into a professional studio for that matter, by the time we were done recording a single and got it out there, I'd be splitting fractions of a percentage of the earnings with multiple contributors. I mean, there was a time when selling CDs and merch was a band's bread and butter for funding tours and record production. And while this still goes on today, sadly, those days are over. Daniel Sanchez at Digital Music News reports that the per-play payment on Spotify in 2019 currently stands at approximately $0.00676 per stream. So basically, with a little bit of math, artists will need around 217,752 total streams to earn $1,472. That's the national monthly minimum wage. And I feel comfortable stating the opinion that minimum wage is by no means a living wage, especially in the epicenters and sound capitals that young musicians often seek out. Small-time musicians simply are not keeping a roof over their heads from royalties on Spotify. By the time they record, license, and distribute a song, their piece of the pie is far too small to survive on, even with a substantial following. So, a young artist is forced to diversify. They must find new ways to earn, promote, and capitalize on their creation. But after speaking with my friend Trip Face about his experiences as a performing rapper for the last 5 years, I realize it may be harder than it seems at first glance.
I was looking in the mirror, looking at the past, trying to find a reason why I'm still up on the map. I was looking at the stars, clearer than some glass, and now I'm wondering why I ain't make it on my path. I'm a goddamn dragon, hit them, lift them up like I was.
So
Can you explain kind of how that works around here?
starting out, all of the tickets I would sell either go to my family here or like my friends around town. But like as you network and more, you get those contacts of those people who are just like, yeah, I'll come to your shows. And so, I mean, it gets easier, but it's definitely always the same struggle building new fans to get to come to your shows.
Right. I guess at a certain point, there's a
Until you get
there's
famous.
there's more word of mouth going on. At a certain
Yeah.
point, people are sharing your music, but when you're starting out, you have to share.
No,
it.
yeah. When you're famous,
Right.
you just got to be like, hey, I have a show, and then it's sold out.
Yeah. Now, do venues or promoters require you to sell tickets in order to get on the bill?
So some of them do, some of them don't. Like a lot of places have a ticket minimum where you have to sell like 10, 15 tickets to get the slot, and then you get paid for the tickets you sell after that.
Okay.
But then at the same time, a lot of like smaller shows at like bars and like just like people's houses and shit, they'll still have you sell tickets, but there's not a minimum. You just get paid more if you sell the amount that they give you.
Understood. So, is that most of your pay at a lot of these venues? Is the tickets that you sell on top of that minimum?
Yeah, it's usually like 100% the pay unless people are like, hey, you're fucking sick, here's some money. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
Which
not-
I
it's
have
not-
had that happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it's not like you get tipped out at the end
No,
of the
yeah.
night.
That'd be way cool though.
Like, you were hyphy, you kicked some ass, here's $100.
Right.
No, it just doesn't work like that. That's too bad.
Now, usually I'm cool if people would just buy me a shot after my show.
Tripface mentioned that a huge piece of even getting put on a lineup in the first place is ticket sales. Typically, a venue or promoter will require that the opening act sell a predetermined minimum amount of tickets in order to even step on stage. It is not until an artist has sold all their required tickets that they are able to begin selling tickets for profit. Even more challenging than that, Tripface told me that when a young artist is first starting out, they may travel far and wide just to find venues that will give them a chance at this. In Tripface's case, he has been localized in the Longmont area for his entire career. Yet, many of his shows are in Fort Collins or even Denver. The implication here is that in order to get a first chance on stage, an artist who may only have a following of a couple dozen people must find maybe 20 people in their lives who are willing to not only pay for a ticket and listen, but travel up to 50 miles just to see the show. As a result of this practice in particular, many young artists can't even break through those initial barriers and make it to the first tier of musicianship.
Running back to smacking mad bastards, fap on a haphazard, hazmat actor, do a backflip, crack rib, hit him in the back with a fat stick, give him acid, push on my platform, trip on a train like last year, get raptured, ripped by the raptor, bitch, I'm Jurassic, up in a grown massive, 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 massive.
Now, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, Evan Elliott here of Elliott Home Inspections, Inc. Inspected once, inspected right. Exceptional service and top quality reports. With extensive InterNACHI home inspection certifications and over 20 years of residential construction experience, you can hire me with confidence. In addition to standard home inspections, I offer drone roof inspections, infrared thermography, radon testing, sewer scope, mold inspections, and mold testing. A thorough home inspection depends heavily on the individual inspector's own effort. If you honor me by permitting me to inspect your new home, I guarantee that I will give you my very best effort. I always meet or exceed InterNACHI's home inspection standards of practice. As a participating member of InterNACHI's We'll Buy Your Home Back program, if I miss anything, we'll buy your home back, guaranteed. To schedule your home inspection, visit our website at elliott-homeinspections.com. That's Elliott, ELLIOTT-homeinspections.com. Thank you.
A big thanks to Elliott Home Inspections for sponsoring this episode. Another major obstacle on the road to success is the culture and the atmosphere of the modern music industry as a whole. One of my favorite quotes about this is a Frank Zappa quote from 1987 that I think is fundamental in explaining what we are seeing today in the musical climate.
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives, you know, who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace. The young guys are more conservative and more dangerous to the art form than the old guys with the cigars ever were. You know, and they got that attitude. And the day you get rid of that attitude and get back to, who knows, take a chance, you know, that entrepreneurial spirit where even if you don't like or understand what the record is that's coming in the door, the person who is in the executive chair may not be the final arbiter of taste of the entire population. you know?
In the music industry today, we are being force-fed a highly homogenized mixture of ultimately the same content and the same experiences. Oh, let's see Bassnectar for the dozenth time, or have you heard Little Blank's new album? We're being forced to consume media that, frankly, I don't want to consume, and that many people don't want to consume. Even the other artists, especially the artists who struggle to sustain themselves within the same industry that ostracizes them and neglects to recognize their talent. On this topic, Tripface had this to say. I've noticed people who are, immensely talented and, musically brilliant and great performers and lots of fun and totally lovable and likable, and still seeing them having a great deal of trouble sort of succeeding with their music or making it an occupation. Why do you think that is?
I have a couple of theories on this one, and I'm not going to say, I have the exact answer, because nobody has the exact answer, but I have a couple of theories on that one. So one of them is nobody likes broke people. And the other one is these days in the time of, like mumble rappers and like hype rappers, you got to have clout if you want people to even pretend to take you seriously, I feel like.
Maybe you kind of have to operate within the box a little bit.
No, yeah. And it sucks. I love being outside of the box, but on some level,
you
like, you got to be in there enough for them to like see that you exist and then do your own thing. You know what I mean? And it sucks. It really does. But everyone's got to do it, I feel like. And that's why all these mumble rappers are big now, because Lil Wayne started that whole trap wave, and then T.I. turned it mumbly, and everyone was like, oh, let's sip lean and get fucked up on that, and now it's just the norm. But yeah.
It's kind of depressing, isn't it?
A little bit.
Just a little bit. It's also kind of fun, but it's a little depressing.
From a lyricist standpoint, it's very depressing. From a party-goer standpoint, it's okay.
This translates for me to a remarkably sad sentiment. That musicians and young creators are essentially forced to water down their creations in an attempt to create something that is similar to what is already proven to sell. And they have to do this before they can even begin to get noticed or be given a chance. The people who are truly in power in the music industry are not the artists and not the listeners, but the executives, the sound engineers, the labels, all of whom have their fingers in the pot that is royalties from streaming. A standard of practice that is now perpetuating a flawed system in which very rarely does anything original get any traction at all. The people who have the money, power, and means to produce the music are focused solely on their established norms and their profits. I do think, however, that this puts some of the power in the listener's hands. Just like with any product, anytime we consume, we are voting with our dollar. Perhaps if we do more as an audience to consciously and intentionally support local musicians and somehow avoid feeding the machine, we can start to break down the system that is chewing up both musicians and listeners alike. And, as creators, myself included, we have to collectively form meaningful connections and establish venues and means of collaborating and informing one another of opportunities, new content, and methods for success. Only together are we strong enough to elicit the kinds of change that are needed to ensure a better world for future creators. Now, I don't expect this short bit of information to afford us the opportunity to divine the solutions to a systematic and ongoing problem. And I know that I, personally, am still left with questions. Should we simply encourage musicians to not want to succeed with their music? Should we redefine what success means entirely? How can we enable each other instead of supporting the evil empire? As a musician myself, I want answers. But the solutions to this ongoing predicament have yet to reveal themselves, and sometimes I feel like a slug who has voted for Salt as my president. The music industry is just that, an industry, designed to function on algorithms and standards established in order to make money. Creating a creative quandary that has challenged artists for a long time, but one that is more complex and whose solutions are more elusive than ever before. In order for true progress, we will need a massive rearranging of the established way of doing things, and perhaps by the time the next generation comes into leadership roles in the industry, something will break, something will change, and more people who deserve chances will receive them. I certainly hope so. But there is no telling what is to come. I don't believe that anyone in 1960 was thinking about the future of music believing it would look as it does today. how do you think we got here? I mean, you just talked about it a little bit in regard to Lil Wayne. Like, how do you think, for example, specifically the rap industry got to where it's at today, where, you know, there's more appreciation for mumble rappers and things like that than, you know, the classics, for example?
I think a lot of it has to do with counterculture because everyone likes what their parents hate. But also I feel like a lot of it is just everything evolves. Like you went like, or not you, but like, you know, like rock went from like classic rock to like psychedelic rock to like punk rock to, I don't even listen to modern rock, so I can't say where it is now.
Well, it diversifies and breaks
No,
out.
yeah,
I always
but-
find it fascinating what catches on. you
Right.
know? And I'm sure there's a lot that goes into studying those things, and there's people who know much more about it than I do, but it just blows my mind how, you know, certain artists or certain styles become, you know, what's popular.
Right.
Because for me, you know, the music that you make and the music that Stip Treasy makes and a lot of these locals here that are just amazing is way more appealing to me than almost anything on the radio.
I'll
so
agree
it
with
makes
that completely.
good. So it makes no sense to me how, you know, you are still where you are.
Right.
You know, because the reality is I've seen you putting in work consistently. I've seen you performing at shows. I've seen you producing music. I've seen you collaborating. I've seen you doing everything that I feel like you should do. And
Here we are.
here we are, you know, sitting on the porch doing an interview instead of in the studio. You
Right.
know?
Well, we could have done it.
We could have done it in your studio, yeah, or mine.
Homeboy's at work right now.
Fair enough. We could have done it in my studio. But, again, it doesn't hit as hard.
Right.
For us, the listeners, I think that we need to invest more of our time and resources in our friends who create. If you know someone who has a performance coming up, allocate the money and buy 2 tickets. Stream their new album on whichever platform they prefer, share their music with your friends, and when you have the option of choosing between seeing an alternative punk band from the Northwest and Bon Frickin' Jovi, choose the alt band. Hell, choose both, but absolutely do not forget or overlook the talent that is overflowing in the world today. Recognize people for their efforts, support everyone best you can, and please, take the time to tune in and listen to what is being presented to you. You just might like what you hear. And for many of us musicians, without an attentive audience and listeners who express how much they enjoy what we're doing, however few they might be, we perhaps wouldn't have the will to fight our way through the many obstacles between step 1 and success. We have all heard the sentiment time and time again, I do it for you, we do it for the fans. Without you, none of this would be possible. That, in my opinion, is one of the truest things you'll ever hear. Things may seem grim, and as creators, the industry may feel intimidating. However, there is still hope. When asked what can be done about these issues, Tripface had this to say.
A big part of it is just don't let the lack of growth at first, like, make you stop, because it hurts. It really hurts when you do 10 shows and nothing fucking changes. It really
Perseverance.
fucking hurts. So perseverance is a huge one. Another thing is just on the same level of perseverance is like just continue to give like that same energy as when you started if possible, because like
The passion.
yeah, because like everyone likes to see that passionate guy get off stage and he's like, oh yeah, this shit was fire, and then, you know, people will come up and be like, oh, good job, and if you're all like, you know, happy and excited and like, yes, thank you so much, you're gonna build those fans. But if you're like,
Absolutely.
I'm tired of doing this because it doesn't mean anything, you're not gonna get a single fan at that show.
I guess that's part of putting the work in, like, you know, boots to the ground. You have to, after your show, you have to go out there. You have to interact with your audience. You have to make those connections.
Yeah, exactly.
And I imagine you have to do that before a show, too. in
Yeah,
order to sell
before,
those tickets.
after, 24/7 kind of.
It seems that even though the way of the modern musician is to struggle, if one can accept the challenge and face it head-on with gumption and passion, then perhaps there is still success to be had. Redefining what it means to succeed and finding happiness within your creations could be the best way to achieve not only fulfillment, but a certain level of success as well in a climate where succeeding is more challenging than ever before. And for the listeners, you not only have the power, but hopefully a growing understanding of how to elicit the change you want to see in the world. Thank you all for tuning in to the Lionheart podcast and listening so attentively. Many thanks to Tripface for his commentary, and thank you to our sponsors. We hope that this was an informative episode for you. Now, I beg one final question. What will you do as both a creator and a listener to support and create a meaningful, productive, and functional artistic community? please remember to listen close. Thanks again for listening. This is your host, Luigi Villano, signing off.